Lesson number 10 in the IELTS Terminator, Writing for Academic IELTS. This is all about part 2 of the IELTS writing exam, the discursive essay for academic IELTS. Here we're going to look at the alternative proposition. After leaving a blank line and using an indent, we begin on the third paragraph. In this paragraph, we consider the alternative to the proposition in the question we discussed in paragraph 2. Remember, in paragraph 1, we restated the question and gave an indication of our opinion. In paragraph 2, we made an argument for the proposition. In this paragraph, we concede that there is another possible way to solve the problem or to consider what was said, and we give some arguments as to why this other way to think of the problem could also be correct. So, to show that this is going to be a different way to consider the proposition, we start off by using words that indicate an opposite alternative. What are some words we could use to introduce this paragraph, considering it's going to have the opposite opinion to the paragraph we just outlined? Perhaps now's a good time to pause the video and come up with as many words as you can think of that would introduce an alternative. When you've done that, come back and restart the video. So let's see if you think the same as I did. Perhaps we could start our next paragraph with words like alternatively, on the other hand, on the contrary, conversely, from another perspective, despite blah blah blah. There are many more. You know now how to find alternative words for the one we're thinking of. If you've got Word on your computer, type a word that you want the alternative for, highlight it, then go to Review in Word, look for thesaurus. It will give you a number of alternative words you could use. Put them in your vocabulary bank notebook. Okay, so let's construct our paragraph by using one of these words and setting up our topic sentence, and to follow it with a supporting sentence or a phrase. First of all, indent. Leave a blank line and indent. Here's my idea. It might not necessarily be yours, and it might not necessarily be the way you would say it. However, my task here is to show you ways to do this, and if you have average intelligence and a level of English which would be considered to be about intermediate, this is not all that difficult. So, on the other hand, there are many teenagers who have been brought up in an environment where violence seems to be the answer to many problems, and the examples set by elders revolve around settling disputes by resorting to force and threat. Most people would probably agree that where the language of violence has been the only one these offenders understand, the gentler approach may not be recognized as being pertinent. There's a few good vocabulary words in there that you can put in your vocabulary bank. Okay, so did I give the examiner a signpost that I was about to offer a different proposition? How about the words on the other hand? Yes, because I started by saying on the other hand. Of course, I could have used any of those words we talked about a little earlier. And did I support my topic sentence with a qualifying sentence or phrase? Yes, I think I did. Did I quote some sort of authority for my proposition? Yes, most people. Examiner's not going to go out and interview most people just to see if you're right. Okay, so I think this has been a pretty good sentence to counter paragraph, a good paragraph to counter paragraph 2. Here I am arguing against the proposition. So let's step back a bit. Let's go back to the questions you began to answer in the previous lessons and now add a third paragraph to these essays. Here they are again. Some people think that when a person travels into a different culture, they should adapt to the local practices and customs. To what extent do you agree? You've already begun this essay if you've been following my suggestions. You've already got your first paragraph and your second paragraph. Now it's time to add the third one where you counter the opinion shown in paragraph 2. You may stop the video while you do that and then come back. And then do the same with this question. You already have your opening paragraph where you have restated the question in your own words and given an opinion. Then in your second paragraph, after leaving a blank line and an indent, you have argued for the proposition that children can learn effectively by watching television. Now, after leaving a blank line and an indent, it's time to add the paragraph where you argue that perhaps this is not correct. Okay, so far we're progressing very well. Your essays are developing quite well. Start your paragraph with one of the words that we showed you about earlier to offer an alternative argument. Use topic sentence and a support sentence or a phrase and a quote of some sort of authority. Remember, this paragraph doesn't need to be only 2 sentences. It might be a little longer. It might be a little shorter. Sometimes they are. That's just how life is. In our next lesson, we're going to look at the killer paragraph. This paragraph that we're going to look at in our next lesson kills the IELTS exam. You will become an IELTS terminator if you use it. This is the paragraph that sets you well apart from the usual IELTS candidate. It makes the examiner sit up and take notice. So tune in well for this one in our next lesson.